Oh, sure. Thanks. I was gonna do it after.
You calling?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
The witness.
I thought he called him already.
Yeah.
He's a lawyer, right?
Yes, it is.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Wiltshire, for attending upon this meeting. Apologize for keeping you.
Thank you.
For so long. Didn't anticipate that the witness ahead of you would have taken so much time. But he had detailed responses to give to the queries which were raised. What you are attending upon is a duly constituted meeting of the Public Accounts Committee of the Parliament based on Cap 10, the Public Accounts Committee Act, which empowers the committee to look into matters relative to financial management of central government entities as well as state-owned enterprises. This exercise is convened pursuant to the issuance of the last report of the Auditor General, not the last one, the one prior to that, of the Auditor General's office.
No, you want me to stop?
I should draw to your attention that you will be put under oath or asked to give an affirmation to that which you say. And it is my duty to tell you that that which you say is subject to penalty if found to be at odds with that which is factual or truthful. And that is all stated in Cap 10A, the Public Accounts Committee Act. There are fines and other penalties of confinement, which I'm sure you are aware of. We are convened to look into several matters to which you have been apprised. Relative to the operation of the Transport Board, you're here in your capacity as chairman of the board for the period under review. And these matters include the process approved and the process employed for purchasing of parts and how this may have contributed to the board's inability to repair buses and maintain an adequate fleet. Secondly, the repairs regime employed, especially so relative to bus transmissions. Third, the acquisition of reconditioned transmissions. matters of over invoicing and overpayment, particularly so for repair transactions, the status of a bus BM506, the status of a scenic tour bus purchase transaction around that. Essentially, mainly so those are the issues. All clear?
Yes, sir.
I have to ask you to do an affirmation or to take the oath. The deputy
But
clerk.
before I take the oath,
Yes.
I must inform you that this is Mr. Milton Pierce.
All right, we get to that after the,
Okay.
because we will enter all of that into the record.
All right?
Good afternoon, Mr. Wiltshire. You're going to take the oath?
Yes, ma'am.
Could you stand, please?
You're not old, man.
Raise the Bible in your right hand and read the oath for us.
The evidence that I shall give before the committee shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God.
Thank you so much. You may sit.
Thank you. So you wanted to introduce the gentleman that accompanies you, known to
Yes.
us, but for formal purposes, put in the record, please.
Yes, I would like to inform the committee that my attorney is Mr. Milton Pierce, QC.
Good afternoon to you, Mr. Pierce.
Good afternoon, sir.
Now, the committee this evening comprises, for your information, Senator Nurse on my left here, second on my left here, Minister Husbands, Minister Colin Jordan, and Honorable Dr. Sonia Brown. I was going to say Minister
Yeah.
Brown. So we probably constitute 5 out of 30 members constitute a quorum. We're open to questions, unless you want to make an opening statement.
Well, quite frankly, when I look at this special audit which came in the package, it did open my eyes to a number of things, and in particular, the costs and invoices for transmissions.
The record.
I must say that I am not aware of these costs because, as far as I'm concerned, the board never had any account of this figure, let's say in 2014 and 2013. We had different figures. And if my memory serves me right, in 2014, when I went to Trinidad, accompanied by Mr. Codrington and Mrs. Boyce, to look into the similar problems which were experienced at that time as they are now. I say now, but in my time. The cost of the transmissions was between $35,000 and $40,000. $35,000 and $40,000. And Mr. Codrington, he is the person who told Mr. Bartholomew, who they succeeded in getting out, that it was between $35,000 and $40,000. And so I am rather surprised to see $24,000, $26,000, $27,000. I must say that I am not bashing the Auditor General. I have great respect for him, but he can only put in information which was given to him. But this is not what I know. In addition to that, there is a section here in relation to let me see, they said Mr. Bartholomew, I'm just checking it. Huh? This is the frequency of repairs and that kind of thing. Management consultant. And it was not, I would consider, an accurate picture. The failure of Mr. Bartholomew was not largely due to the financial circumstances of the board. That was only one of them. But it was due to sabotage, undermining, false information given by the financial controller, who inflated the costs. Like, for example, we got information in Trinidad that, this is from Bartholomew, by the way, Mr. Bartholomew, that we could import transmissions, reconditioned transmissions for between $25,000 and $3,000. And that is how Transport Board started bringing in transmissions at that price. They never did any research. And more importantly, he told us that the said company would train 2 mechanics to repair the transmissions. And all across the months that I was there, it was $35,000 or $40,000. And the difference between 35 and 40, if the Transport Board did not supply the parts, the provider would would add $5,000 more. And then when the special project was opened, was set up, I should say, they started bringing both the transmissions and the kits for the transmissions, which would have been much cheaper. I might say that when the transmissions came in, the reconditioned transmissions, they came in at, let's say, $5,000, but if you send back the shell, you will get a credit of $2,000. So that is one aspect of it. The second aspect was that they never said anything, either Codrington or the financial controller never said anything about a cost-benefit analysis done to the special project. All across the length of Barbados, even on the floor of Parliament, she said, this is the financial controller, she said that the project lost $2 million. I heard in my 2 ears. She also said that Bartholomew was getting $22,000, which was a lie. The man was only getting $13,500. When Bartholomew fixed, well, maybe. When he fixed a transmission at this special project, it was recorded by the financial controller that it cost $23,000. Although we brought it in at $5,000, and when it landed at Mangrove, it was $7,600. But I do not know how she arrived at $23,000. But yeah, I'm seeing now 26,300 and upward. But that is incorrect. Also, she inflated these figures. I remember coming through from Rome, not Rome, Germany. I stopped off in England, and I called Bartholomew and asked him if he wanted anything to bring down. And I brought in some kits for the fuel injection pump. There were 30 of them. And I brought them back. I gave them to storage, and I asked Mr. The gentleman in charge of storage, cannot remember his name now. He will come back because you see, I'm in my declining years, so my memory, But anyhow, he told me it cost $100. But yet, when the financial controller came in the boardroom, she told us that it cost $1,500. $1,500. In addition to that, she came in the boardroom. I understand from her transcript that she said she never should come in there, but that's a different story, which I'll address later if time is permitted. She came in and told us that Bartholomew was getting $22,000, and when I questioned her, she said $13,500. Then she added on housing, and I stopped her. I said, "You don't add housing and salary together?" She said, "Yes." Then an accountant on the board, he told her that she was wrong, but she would not have it. She went on, and she said she added the van which she is driving around, a percentage. I asked her, "What is the percentage?" I can't remember what she said. If she said 5%, I said, "Why 5, not 7? Why not 15? Justify it." She didn't answer. And then she talked about the phone which he was using. And I told her that was a digital phone which would have been given to managers. And that at the end of the day, there's no cost, and each manager would have a number of minutes per month. Getting back to the car, that was an the van. Can't remember, one of those open back vans. I can't remember it was a Datsun. Anyhow, it was in the yard at Transport Board for over 10 years. And because he was coming to set up the project, he was given the van to drive, but it was not the exclusive use of his because the mechanics used to get it. They would go to Simpson Motors, Percy King to get parts. If a bus breaks down, they'll go. When he was at Weymouth, the gentleman, Mr. Bullard, he would take out minutes for the board, go to the bank, etc. So it was not the exclusive use of the gentleman. But yet, in the FC's mind, he was getting $22,000. And I told her I don't want to hear her telling anybody any nonsense about this man getting $22,000 because, it would set a bad precedent or whatever when the people are going to react, especially the mechanics. But she didn't do it, but I saw it a couple of weeks afterwards in the Nation newspaper of the 23rd of, I think, July 2017. I have a copy here, so when we come back to that, I would present it. So what I'm saying, that no cost benefit analysis, as far as Mr. Codrington and Ms. Sue, it was a failure. And I want to say this afternoon that this document here, with all due respects to the Auditor General, does not really reflect the accuracy of what went on in my time. And regards to engines and those kinds of things, I will address them later. So we're talking about the cost savings not utilized, I see here, and unavailability of parts. And I'm saying that much could have been done. So I don't know if the Auditor General is here, but he has a lot of work to do now. It's not accurate.
All right, he's not here, and he'll get a chance to respond to you. You said you referred to my time. Just for your opening statement, if you would just add for the official record your position at the time with the board, 2015, 2018.
The board was constituted 2013 to 2018.
And you were chairman of the
I was chairman.
All right, okay. All right, the Auditor General is not here this afternoon. Usually is, but he's not here this afternoon. If I hear you saying very clearly that a financial controller inflated numbers,
Yes.
and you were saying that most definitively.
Pardon me?
You were saying that most definitively, categorically. You're stating the
Yes.
financial. You're talking about
She
Ms. Sue.
inflated.
You're talking about Ms. Sue.
Mrs. Sue. Excuse me. Okay. Yes, sir.
You're talking Mrs. Sue.
That's right.
Inflated numbers
The
with reference to Mr. Bartholomew's remuneration,
remuneration.
as well as with reference to expenditure that the board incurred, costs.
The cost of like purchasing transmissions, if he service a fuel injection pump, when the cost of the kit is $100.
But to what would you attribute that type of action, the inflating of numbers,
I don't know.
on the part of a financial controller?
I do not know because I didn't agree with it. The accountant on the board, he did not agree with it. And I had asked her, she sent off the information to MTW, and I had asked her to revisit it and then resubmit it, and she refused.
When you say I did not agree with it, you're referring specifically to
The transmissions,
the cost of transmissions?
the cost of repairs to fuel injection pumps, and can't remember the other one.
Okay. All right, we're gonna have the members of the committee address some questions to you. Anybody wants to go first? Sorry. Mr. Minister Jordan.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. Thanks, Mr. Wiltshire. I just want to ask a couple of questions following on from the chairman. The matter of inflating costs, I think I understand what you were referring to in relation to remuneration. So taking a salary and adding benefits to it. I think that's what you were saying, that you did not agree with the adding of the benefits.
That's right.
To the actual salary. So you saw that as inflating costs. All right, I may come back to that. But is that the only cost you're referring to?
No. I said transmissions.
Transmissions as well. Well, before I ask that, in what way are you saying the costs were transmitted? No, outside of, I think you spoke to coming into board meetings and giving a number, which you consider to be an inflated number. Now, did that number find its way to financial statements, for example? Or was that inflated number just an oral something?
I think it was in financial statements. The reason why, and it is even here documented, by the Auditor General, if you take his statement as a guideline. When the transmissions came in, he said they came in, the non-delivery of special, sorry, I'm here looking for, it was observed that during the period March 2015 to March 2018, the board obtained reconditioned transmissions from a local supplier with the lowest cost of $22,460 VAT exclusive per unit. Having been informed in July 2014 of reconditioned Allison transmissions costing $5,576 exclusive of shipping from a company in the United States, the board subsequently commenced purchasing transmissions from this supplier. Payment of 50% of the cost of the first shipment was made in November 2014. Subsequently, the supplier offered a rebate of $2,027 on the return of all transmissions, thus reducing the price of the reconditioned transmission to $3,549 exclusive of shipping. The board records show that 45 reconditioned transmissions were paid for from this overseas supplier between 2014 and 2018. Now, I'm saying the Auditor General said 3,548. He didn't say 23,000.
Right, so you're not speaking to the financial statements then in terms of where this number, because acquiring the costs, that I believe normally would come under repairs.
Mm-hmm.
However, that is denoted in the financials. Something along the line of repairs or maintenance, something like that. Now, my question is, did the financial statements reflect this $20-something thousand for each of the transmissions, or?
I'm not sure about that, but I know she came in and said that it was $23,000.
Okay, so that was an oral presentation to the
Yes,
board
I'm talking about her statistics.
when she's presenting to the
Yes.
board.
Yeah.
Okay. You indicated that when that was said, I just using a term that is commonly used, so there was some pushback from yourself as chair
That's right.
on the numbers. You also said that there was somebody on the board who agreed with you that the numbers were not correct. So let me put it that way.
That's right.
What then, the board with its functioning, it needs to make decisions based on information. How was the board able to make decisions? Transmissions, from what the Auditor General is saying, is one of the major issues facing the transport board on the repair side. How was the board able to make decisions given the variance that you saw in the costs? A couple of thousand or a few thousand versus tens of thousands, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
How were you able to make, well, not you, I mean you as in, or you chaired the board. How was the board able to make decisions? What information did you use? Was it her information? Was it what you thought it should be? How did you make decisions?
Well, the board would come together and then they would decide what would be the best way forward. But we were cash-strapped as well, you must remember. And there was little we could do at that time. But we still pressed ahead with a project which we had implemented, and we were focusing on that project and bringing in the transmissions, but we were also repairing bus engines. We also doing repairs to, let's say, brake shoes, fuel injection pumps. We were doing repairs to starter motors, because we were trying to cut costs. And at the time, the Minister of Finance told Transport Board that they were spending too much money. And he cannot go on giving Transport Board money. every month to pay salaries, and they have to do something about it to stop the hemorrhaging of the funds. So that is the reason why we set up the project. And we saw that Bartholomew said that there was a high wastage of, let's say, starters, because what the mechanics used to do, they would take off a starter, which is bad, throw it in the yard, and then go and get one for $2,600. Bartholomew said you can use that, put in brushes, check the armature, and then the brushes will cost about $200, so you got a saving of $2,400. So that is what the board was doing, saving, and nothing was said in this report.
But Mr., if I may interject, Mr. Wiltshire, what you're saying is suggesting that the Auditor General's report, which is much informed by the offices, that is the Office of the Auditor General, by the office's interaction with the Financial Controller, is way off base.
Well, you can put it that way.
All right. You are also saying that the Financial Controller brought to the board and to, I suppose, management meetings, information considered by you, perhaps other members of the board, certainly the accountant on the board, to be bad information. It's a question of incompetence. It's a question of indifference.
Now you want to know that.
But if you are of the view that the Financial Control is bringing bad information to the board, and management must operate on the basis of the information which is fed to it, Minister Jordan is taking us there, then why isn't action taken against the Financial Controller?
Well, let me put it this way. It was during I think 2017, that we started to take a good look at it, because that is when these discrepancies started to come up. And as you know, we only had 1 year. We had a couple of months. So, quite frankly, if the party had won, I know action would have been taken. Because, you know, when you send someone on suspension, then the union gets involved, and it is long drawn out, but we had work to do.
So no action at all was taken? No action at all was taken?
No action.
Minister Jordan.
Yeah, did the board have any thoughts about why the information from your perspective was being presented in the way that it was? I mean, you are saying that the discrepancy could be $10,000, $15,000 between the reality and what you are hearing presented in board meetings. Did the board have any thinking as to why that was being done? Why the numbers, as far as you were concerned, were being so inflated, so grossly inflated?
Well, some of them remain silent because she had her enablers on the board, and they never said anything. You know, so it was more or less split down the middle. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Sorry for that.
Yeah. You also, this is still in terms of the role of the Financial Controller. You indicated that no cost-benefit analyses were done.
That's right.
Now, the note I have says on the matter of transmissions, was this, the cost-benefit you're talking about, did this relate to this special project?
That's right.
The special project.
Special project.
So how did the board make the decision to do this as a special project, as opposed to doing it in the normal course of business?
of the board, why?
Because if you didn't have the information, but somebody made a decision that we're going to do this as a special project, but you said that no cost-benefit analysis was done on the amount of transmissions, and I took this to mean the repairs, the high cost of repairs as
I talk about
identified.
for this report,
Cost-benefit analysis for the report?
yeah.
I'm not clear.
In other words, when this special audit was being prepared, all that was said about the it was under consultant that financial constraints prevented the consultant from increasing the bus total to 200, something like that, financial. But it was not really financial only. That's what I'm arguing. So another was said about the other benefits, so as to reduce the cost, because they're saying that a lot of money was spent and we should have used more reconditioned and using local providers. So I'm saying that that part will show that we were doing something to save costs.
And what were some of the other matters or influencers other than financial? So you're talking about financial constraints. I get from you that you're saying that that was the one that was highlighted.
That's highlighted.
Right, but there were others.
There are others.
That were not highlighted. You kind of, your undertone suggests that there was some deliberate attempt not to highlight those others. Could you share what some of those other factors were?
I mean, that prevented the project from there were a number of them. Sabotage. We had at Mango, where it was set up, Bartholomew, the consultant, would bring in half blocks and he would build engines, all right? And one day when he was starting the engine, although it was set up to specification, it would not start. And he had to take it back down. And as the agent would say, pick it down, take it down. And he found some gloves pushed down inside. And all right, hold on. I'm here looking for my I have them here. I don't know if you can see so far. This is the bench which he uses. The frame, he puts the engine on top of that. This, and this is what he found. All right. In addition to that, the bus which was serviced, he introduced planned maintenance. He had the bus in the yard, and he decided that he would go and check it to see if the radiator was filthy. And he checked on the filters. Now the bus has two filters, a big one called a primary one, a smaller one. And when he checked the filters, the inner one, someone removed it and put in a very nasty one inside. And this is it here. Kick back that he got. Moreover, a senior mechanic, very early in the game when that project started, because they wanted it to fail. We went to Mangrove, we left Weymouth, went to Mangrove, and spoke to the young trainees and told them, do not support Bartholomew. He came down from Trinidad to take away my job. I went to Mangrove, I interviewed some of them, and I asked Bartholomew if he wanted any action taken. He said no. He wanted just peace. He has to work with them, and he did not want any problems.
So you're saying that I think you're being very clear to say that the mechanics, or some of the mechanics, did not want this project to work, and you were saying that they were sabotaging. So my question then would be, what action did the management of the Transport Board take? Because I'm taking it based on what you said, that there's little money, but there's work to be done, and you've created a special project, and you're finding out that there's sabotage, which is what you said. What action did management take in light of what it considered to be the reality facing it?
You must remember that Bathurst didn't want any altercation with anybody. And I think they brought in a watchman, and they put up lights in the area. And we didn't get any other problems as such, but there was an undercurrent still coming through. Now, in the report, you will notice that there was some mention of the use of lots of engines and overheating, or very much overheating. And I want to make it abundantly clear. In 2014, myself and Mr. Codrington and Ms. Boyce went to Trinidad because the minister was not happy with quality assurance. And he said he was going to a conference, and to go to Trinidad with them, he would come over and we could look at how we can solve this overheating problem. Before that, we went to pardon? That's good. When we went down, there were 3 issues which had to be resolved. One was the excessive use of fan belts. The other one was overheating. The other one was transmissions. And after the usual introduction, the first question I asked him was the problem I told him was the excessive use of fan belts.
Him, you're referring to?
Mr. Bartholomew, because we went there to him to get some guidance. And I want to make it clear, Mr. Bartholomew came to Barbados in 1998 under the Barbados Labour Party. But some people think that he's a DLP import. He was not. He came down here when the said buses were giving problems. He told us that. And it was in 1998. And I told him I did not know him personally, but I had done a research paper on transport in Barbados and Bermuda. And when I did it in Barbados, that segment, I was told that, and I saw documentation, that a Trinidadian engineer came down to assist, and that was Bartholomew. He recognized Codrington too as well. And they also brought in 2 mechanics or engineers from Brazil. And they said that the buses were not being serviced according to the manuals. In fact, they were locked up in a cabinet, and they were overheating. And there, Bartholomew told them, he came down and gave them instructions, and then he went back.
You're identifying a number of scenarios that are causing, based on what you said, causing transport problems, making them waste money. You talk about excessive use of fan belts, overheating, and I sense...
Transmissions. And transmissions.
And transmissions. And you've just spoken to maintenance, servicing, sorry. So services is an issue.
That's right.
So my question always, in hearing this, what comes to my mind is, where is management? Because you're chair of the board, but the Transport Board has management that runs or manages, guides on a day-to-day basis. So when all these things are happening, where is the management? What's the role of management? Has management identified these issues? Any actions being taken to rectify? Where are the fan belts going, for example? They're being used, they're disappearing from the stores, so where are they going? What is management's role?
No. I understand your question, but to be fair, there were problems with the fan belts. They're not being stolen. They're not being stolen. The problem was lack of maintenance, and I don't know, I wouldn't want to say ignorance, because when we spoke to Bartholomew said, oh, remember a bus works fairly long, and when it works, the pulleys are worn. They become worn, so they will wobble, and you would take off those, put on new ones. And we didn't hear anymore about the excessive use that was sorted out. What the problem was with the overheating, and he said there are three approaches what must be consistent. One, there's a heat shield, which is a piece of metal which lies between, or is affixed between the engine and the radiator. All right, you have the engine here, the shield here, the radiator here. The engine there. If you do not remove that, the heat from the radiator, from the engine, will not be sucked by the radiator. You follow me? But you must have the radiators cleaned properly, or wash them. And he emphasizing wash. Like how Dr. Fauci said, wash. He said wash it, and if it isn't clean, the radiator cannot breathe.
All right, Dr. Fauci. Miss Dr. Fauci. Mr. Wiltshire, let's shift, give Minister Collins a break. Dr. Brown? The other doctor.
Mr. Wiltshire, a couple layman questions, because I am not an accountant or mechanic.
Neither am I.
Good. Well, you said that that appeared that the numbers by the financial controller were inflated.
Mm-hmm.
Pardon me?
You said that the numbers from the financial controller were inflated, in your opinion?
That's right.
Did she have documentation to back it up? Because I am assuming that the Auditor General would have seen documentation, receipts, invoices, something like that.
I am not sure. It depends on the information which was given. Pardon me. I never saw a $26,000 here, but the Auditor General had it.
All right. So when she presented her findings to the board, that would have been obviously before when she would have come to the board meeting, I assume, and told you figures that she had, including, yes, the salary and the cost of transmission. Did she come with documentation? In other words, did anybody on the board ask for an audit if you suspected numbers would have been inflated or anything?
Well, the accountant, he spoke to her, and I don't know, I can't recall if the subcommittee, it was supposed to be a subcommittee. I'm not sure about that one, but it was highlighted, and it was said they would look into it.
Okay. On the mechanical side now, was there scope for training for Mr. Bartholomew of the in-house mechanics?
There was scope
his-
because when Mr. Bartholomew started the project, he got some youngsters. He trained youngsters from the Polytechnic, some people from UCAL, some from the same transport board.
So what was the reasoning, apart from one man asking the workers not to support him? Why would you think that they would want to not learn or not use the services of Mr. Bartholomew?
That's a very sensible question, but yeah, I wouldn't know that because, and I will tell you this, I was in a room, I think the same fuel injection pump room about 7:30 one night, and we were preparing the room for an engineer to come from England to teach the youngsters how to service fuel injection pumps. And Bartholomew was pushing around a desk, a cabinet. And he said, well, this will be in the way of the presenter, so he will push it back. But what is in here when he looked? He said, wait, I don't believe this. I found he took out a tool, and he said guy who went to Mangrove to tell the guys do not support him, he was in the room. I said, I asked you for this tool, and you told me you don't have one. You never saw one. And the guy held down his head and walked away. So I cannot tell you, it was really sabotage, but
Okay.
some was subtle.
So were any steps taken by management, as Minister Jordan would have been asking, were any steps taken by management to address or to speak to the gentleman that you figured would have informed the workers not to support?
I spoke to him, and Bartholomew said he has to work with them, so let it lay low. He doesn't live in Barbados, so he didn't
So-
want any issues.
Right, but what about the gentleman that?
I spoke to
don't
him.
mean,
I spoke to him.
what was his response?
He didn't say anything.
Silence is consent. Okay, that's my question for now. Thanks.
All right.
Minister Husbands and Senator Nurse.
You want to go? Thank you, Chair. I need you to just clarify a few things for me, Mr. Wiltshire, and good evening. You spoke with both Minister Jordan and with Dr. Brown about the issue of the costs that were presented by the financial controller. I just need to get a clear understanding of the flow of that particular procedure. You had indicated that she had presented to the board figures of $22,460 for the transmissions.
She said 23 in the boardroom.
23, okay. 23,000 in the boardroom. This was at what stage? This was at what stage of the special projects? Was this like near the beginning, or this was closer to 2017? When did that take place?
Mainly closer to 2017.
Closer to 2017.
We started 16, maybe middle 2017. 2017, 16 or thereabout.
Around 2016, 2017?
Yeah.
Okay, to the best of your recollection.
Now, I can check I have a report on Bartholomew about what
On
work
that?
was done.
Okay.
And,
Now, you said that you had knowledge that this could not be the case. could you share with us what was the source of your information? Why did you know that it did not cost $23,000?
First of all, when the transmission or missions come in, they are landed at Mangrove at $7,600. It takes an hour and a half to put in the transmission in the bus, into the bus. And the bus goes up. At the time, the cost per hour, the industrial cost, was $90. And it took, let's say, 2 hours, $180. And the person who put in the transmission was not a dedicated person. He would go up, for transmission, you would go up, put in a transmission, then you would go and do other things, welding, repairing engines, whatever.
And this transmission came from where?
Overseas.
So you're speaking about the imported
Imported one.
transmission. Okay. My understanding from the Auditor General's report was that the imported transmissions the starting cost was around $5,500, and if you returned the old transmission, you would get it for $3,000. That's what the final cost would be to the board. That is my understanding of the imported transmissions. Yes?
Yes, that's
Right.
correct.
The document went on to say that the board had purchased a number of transmissions locally, and that those transmissions were in the vicinity of the $22,000 or $23,000 for each one. And the report went on to say that of the imported ones, 45 were purchased from overseas, but 123 were purchased locally at the higher price of $22,460.
I'm listening.
If you go back to the same page where you read, on page 13, at cost savings not utilized, 211, it reads, it was observed that during the period March 2015 to March 2018, the board was obtaining reconditioned transmissions from a local supplier with the lowest cost being $22,460 VAT exclusive per unit. Having been informed in July 2014, which would have been the year in front, of the reconditioned Allison transmissions costing $5,576 exclusive of shipping from a company in the United States, the board subsequently commenced purchasing transmissions from this supplier. Payment of 50% of the cost of the first shipment was made in November 2014. You're still looking for the...
No, I'm listening to you.
Okay. Subsequently, this supplier offered a rebate of $2,027 on the return of the old transmissions, thus reducing the price of the reconditioned transmissions to $3,549 exclusive of shipping. The board's records show that 45 reconditioned transmissions were paid for from this overseas supplier between November 2014 and May 2018. From March 2015, that is a year after they started buying the reconditioned transmissions from overseas, March 2015 until May 2018. So for most of the period in which you bought the overseas transmissions, where you only purchased 45, information seen indicates that the local supplier installed at least 123 transmissions. Just turning to the page. Transmission for the board at a total cost of $2.8 million VAT exclusive, excluding labor, based on the payment for the first 10 transmissions obtained from the first supplier in the United States. One transmission purchase cost approximately $6,396, which includes shipping. Therefore, if the same amount of reconditioned transmissions were purchased from this overseas supplier, the cost would have been cheaper by approximately $2 million. The savings would be even higher, since this analysis is based on the original cost for the transmission of $3,549 excluding shipping, and not the lower cost of $2,027 excluding shipping. The board's personnel indicated that the lack of funds prevented the purchase of more reconditioned transmissions from this overseas supplier, who had to be paid in cash, unlike the local supplier who offered a credit facility. Now, this is astonishing. And as a board, as a chairman, could you share with us how you arrived at making this decision to purchase only 45 of the reconditioned ones, which you would have gotten at $3,000, or if you didn't send up the part, at $5,000, and during the same period you purchased 123,000 at $22,460 apiece?
Let me make it clear to the committee. This is the first time I'm hearing about 145 transmissions being purchased locally, because the analysis which we were given did not include that. In other words, we would sit in the board anyway here, oh, we had to get transmissions, the cost X, Y, Z. We didn't have a comprehensive analysis that we had to buy in the month of January, February, like that. So when I'm seeing 100-something transmission, it is mind-boggling. So I do not know if that information was deliberately withheld, because we should get like a broad perspective. We owe X, Y, Z. We never got a detailed account.
This went on for a number of years. It started the more expensive transmissions started in 2015 and continued until 2018. So this was over a period of 3 years. If you're purchasing transmissions at a cost that is close to maybe $17,000 more than your imported ones, it would affect your cash flow.
Sure.
If you have not budgeted for it. When you prepared your budget on an annual basis, was your budget set to accommodate these types of prices?
To be honest with you, I am not versed in accounts. So I had to take what was told to me. I am not versed in accounts.
I believe you shared earlier that the then Minister of Finance had expressed great concern about the amount of money that was being spent. Can I assume that this then became a special focus of the board to work with the management to look at how are we going to reduce our costs?
That's right.
And that this gave rise to the special project?
That's right.
Yes? Okay. So your special project was marching along.
That's right.
And while you were purchasing 45 reconditioned transmissions at the $3,000 whatever dollars, at the same time you were purchasing local transmissions for $22,000, it surely would have offset your budget for that particular project. It would have turned it upside down.
No, if I may interject here, there was a special vote of, I think, 1-point-something million for it, for the project.
There was a vote of,
I think 1-point-something million
Okay.
$2.2 million worth. So we were concentrated on the project because transmissions were not the only things that they were doing.
Okay, so, but in terms of your special project, one of the items that was of concern in the special project was the issue of the transmissions.
Transmissions and
Right.
the
So-
engines
Correct.
being lost
Right.
due to overheating.
Right. So when the budgets were presented to you in terms of what was being spent on equipment, and given the fact that you had a special project on the ground to try to manage the issue of cost, I think you said that Mr. Bartholomew had identified that there was a part that they were just throwing away and just taking up a new one for $2,600, when a change of the brushes would end up at about what, $300?
$200 or so.
$200. So therefore, both management, board, workshop is highly alert to the fact that savings could be
Even the
done
greater.
by paying greater attention to what we were doing with equipment that we were purchasing, the parts we were purchasing for the buses.
Right.
So explain to the Public Accounts Committee how it would have escaped your attention that an even greater number was being lost in the purchase of transmissions, where you purchased, it wasn't like you purchased 5 among 45. You purchased 123 and only purchased 45 of the cheaper ones. How could that have escaped the attention of yourself, the accountant on the board who was part of the subcommittee, the manager, the financial controller, the workshop manager, the Mr. Bartholomew? How did all of that escape your attention? That it could go on for 3 years and no savings were achieved because of it.
As I made it clear, I am not an accountant, and I had to depend on the board and the FC. And when she came in, she never used to give us a breakdown of how many transmissions and how much money. She would say, well, this amount went to transmissions, etc. And I will leave that to the subcommittee to decide that. Look at it.
But surely when she presented that X amount was spent on transmissions, you would also get a sense of how many buses were addressed. So the number of buses and the cost of providing them with transmissions did not stick out even to the accountant on the board?
I think this would have come up, and it should be in the financial statements, isn't it?
It certainly should be in your budget. You should know it from there.
Financial statements, well, the MC was a little tardy in her financial statements. So basically, we would have to depend on her because she should say, well, we haven't finished year, whatever it is.
Okay.
All right? So that was the position.
So the provision for transmissions did not look large to you, and you did not, when you kept bursting that budget, that did not ring an alarm bell
You see,
for anybody.
we were eagerly behind, this is 2016. We were looking to see if we could turn around the fortunes of the transport board, so we were more concentrated on that one, I in particular.
Well, this certainly would have turned around the fortunes by a cool $2 million had it been spotted. And my concern is that having a project that was bringing into focus the wastage of money and how to reduce costs, that one of your biggest costs was not spotted by anyone for 3 years. First year maybe, but by the second and third year, it should become obvious that something was very wrong. So I'm just trying to understand
I
why
agree.
that happened.
I must say the Quality Assurance Department was not that proactive. And we had to do a lot of digging to get information in respect of that. Because when the Quality Assurance manager came in, you would tell, well, so many buses needed X, Y, Z. But we did not have a critical assessment that in January, bus 509 or whatever had 2 or 3 transmissions. We got nothing like that. This is the first time picking it up here. There was no analysis.
Okay, so let me then ask another question. You have a special project on.
Mhm.
What setup, what structure was put in place in terms of monitoring, evaluating what was happening, keeping track of progress, keeping track of savings? What did that process look like?
Mr. Bartholomew used to bring his report, I think monthly, and he used to do a cost-benefit overview. I have one here. Tell you what work was done, what the cost was, or from local providers, what his cost was, the special project, and the savings.
And in your report, Mr. Bartholomew never highlighted this issue of the different. Mr. Bartholomew never highlighted this issue of the difference between the local transmissions.
It's not Bartholomew, but it was Codrington.
I'm sorry?
Codrington.
Sorry, I thought you said that someone provided a report,
I said Bartholomew.
provided a report
Yeah.
on what was done
Yes.
and what the costs were.
Yes, because that is his project. He is building engines, he's putting in transmissions, he's cleaning buses to
Good.
prevent all of that, and that was that particular area. Quality assurance, then, they put in their own, they do their own thing, all right?
Sorry, I'm not
I'm
clear.
saying that quality assurance, right?
Right.
Bartholomew was there,
So, Mr.
washing engines and whatever. Quality assurance should be working hand in hand with Bartholomew, but
Oh.
it wasn't.
Okay, so let me see if I understand what you're saying. Mr. Bartholomew, in working on the special projects, he was only working with the overseas transmissions, and
No,
somebody
no.
else was dealing with the local transmissions?
No.
Mr. Bartholomew was dealing with both sets of transmissions?
When the project started up and parts were coming in, the board made a decision that no transmissions are to go to local providers. And that was stopped.
So is that
Right.
recorded in the minutes?
I am not sure, but that was stopped. And
When was that?
I'm not sure, but I know that that was an order given, and it was
Okay.
being followed.
So this was being followed when? 2017,
16,
2018, 2016?
16, 17, yeah.
All right, we are up on the 6 o'clock hour. We're 1 hour past scheduled closing time. We didn't want to have you come here today and not get the opportunity to interact with the committee. We've gone an extra hour, and we'll have to have you back. And I want to interrupt Minister Husbands, because I want to give opportunity to Senator Nurses asking for the floor to ask a question or so, and then we'll look to wrap up for the afternoon. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few little follow-up questions in relation to some of the questions asked by Minister Husbands. You mentioned on a number of occasions your concern with information that you were getting from the financial controller. You were concerned that some information was inflated and so on. I'm just trying to understand what was the board's policy in terms of you know, if you were doing purchases, for example, was there a requirement that, let's say, quotations had to be presented to the board? Was there a tendering process that had to be gone through where you would actually see this information for yourself? I'm trying to understand, if you were so concerned about, you know, this information you were getting that was inflated, what did you do, or what was the board doing about it to satisfy itself that the information that they were making decisions on and that was coming before them was, you know, fair information?
As far as I'm aware, when you're talking about if there was like an invoice or whatever, you would know what to buy and the costs. But when we arrived there was certain providers. I think there were about 3. And that's what we found. And that is where the transmissions were going to. Because when I checked, there was asked about the warranty. Well, Tom is the first person who drew it to our attention. What about the warranty when he came there? Why is it that you have someone repairing a transmission and then there's no warranty? Who is responsible? And that is when things started to change. And I saw in Mr. Carter's notes that a transmission should last 2 years, and you got a warranty of, I think, a year or something like it. I know we got one from overseas for a year. So that is where the consultant came in, and he brought a breath of fresh air to quality assurance, because they were merely exhaling carbon dioxide, nothing fresh at all. So basically, you know, we were just spinning top in mud, you know.
Okay. I have gone through all this whole pile of minutes, board minutes, and I've had a read. And I'm just wondering, on the basis on which a lot of decisions may have been made. The reason why I'm asking is because I've seen no discussion in these minutes about presentation of management accounts on a monthly basis for review by the board. You know, I haven't seen any accounts or annual audited financial statements that would have been approved by the board or reviewed, presented to the board for review. So I'm trying to understand, what information were you using really to make your decisions?
It depended on what information we got from the FC. And she never used to be up to scratch with
It depends not on what information you got or what information you requested. I mean, were you requesting management accounts, for example? Did you question the FC as to why you couldn't get monthly management information? You know,
the board had, in fact, I mean, that was a sore point, because the FC used to come with some excuse about not meeting the deadlines. And I spoke to the general manager, and she spoke to her, and she used to say she was trying to get information from, I think, finance, the Ministry of Finance, but she was a couple of years behind. So we didn't have any documentation as such. She would come in and she would present her findings, and then the board would act on it. Although we requested financial statements, the she was far behind.
Okay.
I can't remember how many years.
You had also mentioned that you had some concerns about the quality control as well in some instances. I'm beginning to wonder: is there any process which was in place for review of the line, your various line managers, so that the board could assess, how they were performing, and what action may be necessary in terms of getting them up to scratch if there were some deficiencies in some areas. What was the board doing about looking at performance of the management team?
Well, the management team used to meet with the general manager, and then they would bring reports in, and then we would discuss them, and then we would issue guidelines, etc.
You had an HR committee?
Yes, we had one.
Okay, so they would have been discussing those
Yes.
sort of performance details and so on, and then
That's right.
feeding back to the
board.
The board.
That's right.
Yeah. In terms of your concerns, then, what actions would the board have taken, if any, in relation to any individuals who you would have found to be, who deficient?
No, we spoke to them, and they told that we had expected better performance, but the hammer never came down as such. So, for example, we had a situation where, for example, they said for the assurance manager, he was not cleaning the buses properly. I was not at that meeting, board meeting, and he was skipping.
All right, Mr. Richard, thank you very much. We will have to have you back next week. I hope you're available on Monday. We're gonna have
Mine is
to,
right there.
Monday coming.
It's 17th.
That would be the 17th, at 2 p.m.
No problem.
Sorry for the
If I can't make, I'll let you know.
Sorry for the abrupt ending, but we have to watch that alarm.